Hey guys, welcome back to my channel again. Thank you again for joining me. So today I have a completely different setting. I am at a surfing place where you can go speedboat, surfing, whatever. Well, not surfing, but jet skis, that's it. Which kind of fits into what my vlog is today, my little video. So if you hear any background noise, I apologise, it is that. And I'm going to try my best to edit it out, but it might not work. So, yeah. As you'll gather by the title, we're going to be looking at the Thames Torso murders, aka the Embankment murders, aka the Embankment mysteries, which was based in London, in England, obviously, in the 1980s, or to be specific, 1888. Did I say 1980? So this is basically a case of a series of murders of women. More specifically, it was murders that were basically around the nature of their bodies being dismembered. So there would be basically, it's a full body, it should stop saying basically, that they would have their legs or feet or arms, heads detached from their torso, their full body basically. Said it again. This all happened between 1887 and 1888 in England, like I said. There were 4 incidents that were assumed to be linked to the same case, but nothing was set in stone, I think, because back then things were just not, up to date or not effective with, medical investigation and things like that. So even though none of the cases were solved in any kind of positive way, one victim was identified as Elizabeth Jackson. There were other murders of the same nature that did happen as well during this time, but again, there was nothing really connecting them fully evidence-based, so it was kind of left unanswered. So one interesting thing about these murders, or interesting in a really weird way, is that the murders were assumed to be linked to Jack the Ripper, so aka the Whitechapel murders. Now, if you know anything about your London history, Jack the Ripper was a very famous, for the wrong reasons, murderer who would target prostitutes in London, obviously, mainly in the Whitechapel area, and similar to the cases, he would attack these women and then he would remove their breasts or the genital areas or remove their organs. So in a way they were dissected and dismembered, but yeah. The motives were completely different in a way, or the modus operandi. The difference between Jack the Ripper, however, and the Thames Torso murders is that with Jack the Ripper, he literally mutilated on purpose these women's bodies, and would leave notes, I think, and would send letters to the police, whereas the Thames Torso murders were just, even though it's not as good, they were basically just dismemberments of the body. So going back to what I was saying before about them being a series of cases, jet ski, there were different cases that made the series, if that makes any sense. So there was the Rainham mystery, there was the Whitehall mystery, the murder of Elizabeth Jackson, which is the one victim that was named and identified, and the Pinchin Street Torso murder, which we'll get into. So the Rainham mystery murder happened between May and June 1987. Basically, so the remains of a woman was found near Rainham in the water of the Thames. They were discovered by workers who first encountered a bundle of the torso, which was identified as a male. During May and June, further body parts were found the following week. These were of the same body, all but the head and the upper chest were found. Now, the medical report states that the body had not been dissected for medical purposes, but had been dismembered by somebody who had to have a bit of a medical skill of knowledge. However, back in them days, if you could not find a cause of death, the case would be classed as found dead. And then we have the Whitehall mystery. So during September 11 and the 17th of October 1888, the dismembered parts of a woman were found at 3 different sites in England, in the UK, in London, in the city centre. This included the upcoming site of the police headquarters known as Scotland Yard. The torso was matched by the police surgeon called Thomas Bond. Right arm and a shoulder that had previously been found in the mud shore of Pimlico. Initially, they suspected that the arm had been put in the water as a medical prank by a student. On September 17th, in 1888, a reporter called Jasper Waring used a Spitsbergen dog. I'm not sure why that's relevant, but I'll try and put a picture of it here for you. With the permission of the police and with the help of a single labourer, which is not named, they found a left leg cut above the knee that was buried in the building site. So now we're going to Elizabeth Jackson, the only known victim that was named. On the 4th of June in 1888, a female torso was found in the Thames, and more body parts soon followed in the following week. So now I'm going to read a document of a report of the parts of Elizabeth Jackson that was reported by the Times newspaper, and I'll try to invert parts of the London map so you can try and visualise-ish where they were found. So, on the 11th of June, the Times newspaper reported that on Tuesday, a left leg and thigh off Battersea was found, lower part of the abdomen at Horsley Down. Thursday, the liver was near 9 Elms, upper part of the body in Battersea Park, neck and shoulders off Battersea. Friday, a right foot and a part of a leg at Wandsworth, left leg and foot at Limehouse. Saturday, left arm and hand at Bankside, buttocks and pelvis off Battersea, right thigh at Chelsea Embankment, and then yesterday, right arm and hand at Bankside. The investigation concluded that medical knowledge had been necessary to perform the dismemberment. An inquest held by Mr. Braxton Hicks on the 17th of June, it was stated the division of the parts showed skill and design, not, however, the anatomical skill of a surgeon, but the practical knowledge of a butcher or a knacker. If we don't know what a knacker is, this is it. Basically, it's a butcher who takes apart or dismembers animal body parts. There was a great similarity between the condition as regarded cutting up of the remains and those found at Rainham and the new police building on the Thames Embankment. The Times on the 5th of June then reported that in the opinion of the doctors, the woman had been dead only 48 hours and the body had been dissected somewhat roughly by a person who must have had some knowledge of the joints of the human body. So they're still thinking it's not really a medical person, but they're still thinking it's someone who does have a bit of medical knowledge. I mean, I don't know professionals, but I'm assuming you'd have to be kind of a medical person or maybe a dropout from medical school, or someone who knows a bit about medical stuff to do this kind of dismemberment. I'm not sure. As if it wasn't enough that this person was dismembering different parts of any body, or these women, even though she was identified, one even further sadder thing about Elizabeth Jackson was that she was actually 8 months pregnant at the time of her death. However, the doctors could not decide her cause of death as usual. Again, maybe something to do with the Times. So they did a classification of what they call willful murder against some person or persons unknown. That's how they classed it back then. Though the head was never found, somehow they identified her as Elizabeth Jackson, a homeless prostitute from Chelsea, which I'm guessing is why they thought she was related to Jack the Ripper cases, because obviously his target was prostitutes. Now the Pinch and Torso murder. So on the 10th of September 1888, police constable William Pennant found the headless and legless torso of an unidentified woman, found under a railway in the arch of Pinchin Street in Whitechapel. It's thought the murder did occur somewhere else, however, and that the parts were later put there, basically. A woman's torso was found at 5:15 on Tuesday the 10th of September 1889 under a railway in Pinchin Street in Whitechapel, which again is linked to where most of the murders of Jack the Ripper were based. They did, however, discover intensive bruising on the victim's back, hip and arm, which suggested that they had been severely beaten before death, which is not, it's bad enough they got murdered and dismembered. They actually managed to somehow, even though they can't manage cause of death, they managed to work out that the bruises had appeared there one day before her death. Similar again to Jack the Ripper, the victim's abdomen had been mutilely attacked seemed to copy that of the Ripper. Her genitals had not been wounded, however. The dismembered parts of the body were thought to have been moved to the railway arch. Again, even though they can't determine cause of death, they assume that the victim must have been around 30 to 40 years of age. However, despite a search of the area, no more body parts were found. Again, neither the culprit nor the victim were identified. Chief Inspector Swanson and Commissioner Monroe, not related to Marilyn Monroe, noted that the presence of blood within the torso proved that death was not from hemorrhage or cutting of the throat. The pathologist, however, said that the general bloodiness of the tissues and vessels did prove the hemorrhage was the cause of death. So, conflicting ideas again. Newspaper speculation said that suggested the body belonged to a girl called Lydia Hart, who had disappeared, but was taken back after she was found in hospital, settling after a spree. Another claim was that the victim was called Emily Barker, and that was also refused. That was also taken back because the torso was actually claimed to be that of an older woman, or a taller woman. Swanson was not convinced at all that it was a Jack the Ripper case, and he believed that there was still a link to the Thames murders in Raynham and Chelsea, as well as the Whitehall mystery. Monroe did agree with Swanson's assessment when he stated, "These three murders are the Pinchin Street case are suggested to be the work of a serial killer nicknamed the Torso Killer, who could either be the same person as Jack the Ripper or a separate killer of uncertain connection. Links between these and three further murders, the Battersea murder mystery of 1873 and 1874, when two women were found dismembered, and the 1884 Tottenham Court Road mystery, have also been postulated." Experts on the murders, such as Stuart Evans, Keith Skinner, Martin Fido, and Donald Rumbelow, discard any connection between the torso and the Ripper killings on the basis of their modus operandi motive. Not that I'm sure what relevance it is, but it has been noted that Monroe was replaced as commissioner by Sir Edward Bradford on the 21st of June 1890, after a disagreement with the Home Secretary Henry Matthews over police pensions. Outside these four canonical cases, which were filed by the police as belonging to the same series of cases, such as the Thames murders, have still been left unsolved. The Battersea mystery. So the Battersea mystery is the name given to this case of series of murders, of two unsolved murders that took place in London between 1873 and 74. On the 5th of September in 1873, the left quarter of a woman's trunk was discovered by a Thames police patrol near Battersea. Subsequently, a right breast was found at 9 Elms, a head at Limehouse, a left forearm at Battersea, and a pelvis at Woolwich, until almost a complete body of dismemberment had been found, basically. The nose and the chin had been cut from the face and had been scalped, which I don't know if you know your native Indian history, but last time I heard about scalping, that's what Indians used to do. Under the leadership of the acting chief surgeon, Metropolitan Police Thomas Bond, which I'm sure is not related anywhere to the character of James Bond, the corpse was allowed to be reconstructed. Attempts to identify the remains were disturbed by the curiosity of the public. I'm not sure why or how, it doesn't really state that way. I don't know when it became popular. And the police showed anyone a photograph to any witnesses, basically. So I don't know, something went wrong, but yeah, their intentions, although good, did not give a positive result. The Lancet reported, contrary to the popular opinion, the body has not been hacked, but dexterously cut up. The joints have been opened and the bones neatly disarticulated. Even the complicated joints at the ankle and the elbow, and it is only on the articulations of the hip joint and shoulder that the bones have been sawn through. Again, due to lack of ability to do a lot back then and lack of medical knowledge, the jury passed a verdict of willful murder against some person or persons unknown. Again, the case remains unsolved, even though there was a £200 reward offered for more information. Then in June 1874, the dismembered body of a female was discovered in River Thames at Putney. The corpse did not have a head, it did not have one leg, and had been treated with lime before being thrown in the river. Now, I'm not sure what lime has got to do with it, but if I can find it, I'll put it here, what that does to a body. The case remains still unsolved. The Tottenham Court Road and Bedford Square mystery. This was reported by the Times on the 24th of October 1884, relating to the discovery of body parts of a woman. The body parts that were found was a skull, still with flesh attached to it, and a chunk of flesh from a thigh bone. This was near Tottenham Court Road in Bedford Square. A woman's arm was found in a parcel. This arm had been tattooed, showing that it might have belonged to a prostitute, because apparently that was the thing for prostitutes then days. A human torso was then found in a parcel by a police constable as he passed 33 Fitzroy Square 5 days later. The parcel was believed to have been placed in that location between the hours of 10 and 10:15. Evidence was presented in an inquest on the 11th of November, held at Giles Coroner's Court. They said that some body parts had come from a woman and they might have been dismembered by someone who was skilled, but not for a purpose of anatomy. I think what they mean by not purpose of anatomy is that back in those days, in order to learn about the body and be a medical student and find things out that we know now, it was quite common in those days that you would have a cadaver, which was, it could be a person who was dead, or it could be somebody who had been committed to an asylum, who was deemed mental or psychotic or incapable of being a normal person, basically. And they would use those people for medical study in front of a class of medical students to cut limbs or cut nerves to see if they would stop somebody from talking, or if it would make them more painful or reduce pain. You know, lobotomies, it wasn't a great thing back then, but that's what they basically did to understand the body better. So the inquest resumed on the 9th of December. More evidence was shown and proved that the body had been carefully dissected. Definitely came from a woman, which was what Dr. Jenkins suggested. This evidence was the right arm, both feet, and the right forearm of a single individual. These also remain unsolved. So again, it's a bit weird. These are very old cases which have not been given a lot of light or a lot of interest, I think maybe because they've been overshadowed by Jack the Ripper's cases. There's been a lot of things going in London that have probably overshadowed it as well. I think it's just an interesting case because it's one of those things that remains unsolved, and even to this day there are still people, newspaper articles, online articles that are saying that they still want to be questions answered, still wanting the investigation to go ahead again and open up and try to work out who the victims were or who possibly could have killed them. You know, DNA nowadays, you could probably track down an ancestor or something. You know, it's a bit sad for those that don't get closure, or you don't know who was missing at that time, or whatever the case. But I don't know. Maybe they will eventually find the killer or identify the people that have not been identified. I don't know. But until then, we're stuck with them being unsolved. So if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe as always, and comment down below if you know about these murders or if you've just only heard about Jack the Ripper, which is possible as well. My next video will be possibly next week, we'll see. But until next time, from the a Filipino gathering. I can see a skier. There we go.